Good morning, everyone. I'd like to begin by welcoming in members and officers and those members of the public watching via YouTube. County Council allows filming and photography at its public meetings, so please feel free to take pictures and use social media during the meeting. Can I ask, though, that everyone present turn their mobile phones to silent or vibrate whilst the meeting is taking place? There's no fire alarm test scheduled for today, so if the alarm sounds, I will adjourn the meeting and we will all make our way downstairs via the nearest available fire exit, which is through the middle doors on my left. The muster point is in the car park at the rear of the building. I would like to extend a special welcome to Councillor Mike Black, attending his first meeting of the committee. At the full council meeting on Tuesday, Councillor Black was appointed to this committee as vice chair, replacing Councillor Cathy Ray. I'm sure the committee will join me in welcoming Councillor Black and thanking Councillor Ray for all of her work as Vice Chair over the last 2 years. Item 1, Dawn, do we have any apologies?
Chair, we have apologies from Liz Brennan, Councillor MacDonald, we have Councillor Batchelor substituting and Councillor Sharp. I haven't heard from Councillor Bowden.
Thank you. Does any member wish to declare any disclosable pecuniary interest or non-statutory disclosable interest?
Okay. Thank you, Chair. I'm a trustee and director of the Cambridge Sports Hall Trust, which is one of the employers within the pension scheme.
Thank you, Chair. My father is in receipt of a county council pension, but I don't believe that precludes me from taking part today. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Chair, I'm an active member, and my wife's also an active member of the pension scheme.
Thank you. I think that's all. Right, so if we move on to item 2, we're being asked to approve the public minutes of the Pension Fund Committee meeting on the 8th of June as an accurate record. Can I ask if any member who does not agree with this proposal to raise their hand now? I see no objections, so we will take that as approved. Thank you. Turning to the action log, do officers have any comments or updates?
Nothing to add further.
Thank you. Do members have any questions on the action log? No, I see nothing in the room. So we are asked to note the action log, and I trust that we're happy to do so. Thank you. Move on to item 4, which is the Cambridgeshire Pension Fund Administration Report. Can I ask Cory Blose, to Employer Service Manager, to present this report, please?
Thank you, Chair. I think the paper is looking to get a review of the employer contributions policy in place rather than the administration strategy. Just check we're in the right place before I continue.
We are in the right place. And I didn't read the title, I just read the words underneath, so I apologise for that. It is a review of the employer contribution rates policy.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, this paper is seeking approval of a standalone policy covering the review of employer contribution rates between triennial valuations. This policy was previously part of the funding strategy statement, but as I explained during the valuation process, we stripped out a lot of the ancillary policies to make sure the funding strategy statement was focused on valuation activities and the review, the setting of employee contribution rates at that point. We said that we were going to bring standalone policies to the committee when they needed to be approved. This one hasn't been materially changed from what was in the funding strategy statement in terms of the policy itself, but we have added wording to make it work as a standalone policy. As you can imagine, when it's part of a document, you don't have introductions, the objectives and things like that. The main purpose of the policy is for fund-led reviews of employer contribution rates between evaluations where we feel there has been a material change to the profile of the employer in terms of their pension liabilities, their membership, or the strength of covenant of that employer. So if we're worried that they're not going to be able to pay their contribution rates, we can have a look and review those between valuations. It does also allow for the review of contribution rates on request by the employer as well. That is one of the reasons that we'll have a look at it, but we would expect that request to be backed up as one of the reasons that we've set out that we would review the policies as well. So we'll only entertain it from an employer if there has been those change of liabilities, membership or covenant strength. I have highlighted in the paper a couple of the changes and added wording that we put in to make this work. A couple of the changes are also bringing in some practicalities that were missing from the funding strategy statement around the process that needs to be worked through. Other than that, I don't have anything to add to the paper, but I'm obviously happy to take questions on both the paper and the document with it.
Members, over to you. Any questions, clarifications? So, Cory, on this, what we're talking about is that it would be for use in exceptional circumstances where something materially has actually changed. Do you have any examples that you could just share? I
could do, yes, and that is absolutely right. It would be exceptional circumstances. Previously, before this framework was in place within the regulations, we were able to review them, but there was nothing setting out policies. The only example I have is before this regime was in place, and it's where an employer took on a load of liabilities for another employer in the fund that didn't have a guarantee. When moving them onto that employer, it gave them a significant surplus from those liabilities, which obviously reduced the amount of deficit that they had by a magnitude that was equal to an annual payment that they'd need to make. So in that example, it was a bit of a quid pro quo as well. The fund got some protection for those liabilities it didn't otherwise have. The employer got an improvement in its funding position, so it felt right in that position to be able to review the contribution rates between valuations.
And in terms of who's actually carrying out those reviews, is that officer led entirely?
It's with the advice of the actuary. So the actuary would look at the contribution rates, look at the new information that we have and see if that changes any of the assumptions we'd made and the profile of the contribution strategy that was in place as well. We would always look to make sure that those contribution reviews, the new rate would have to still fit within the parameters of the funding strategy statement. So we would not be moving outside of our other policies in terms of setting the new contribution rate.
Thank you very much for that. Any other comments, members, at all? In which case we are being asked to approve the review of the employer contributions rates policy. Are we happy to do so? Thank you very much. In which case we'll move on to item 5, which is the Cambridgeshire Pension Fund Training Strategy Review. And can I ask Mark Whitby, Head of Pensions, to present this report?
Okay, thank you, Chair. Yes, this is another strategy for approval for the committee. It's one where we think there were changes made which were of a significance that we needed to bring it to you for that approval. What the changes primarily are on the strategy are incorporating and embedding the new core training approach that we've got, which is the LGPS Online Learning Academy, LOLA, which is obviously run by Hymans. So we've embedded that fully into the training strategy. I think the other section in particular, which we felt it was absolutely necessary to come to you, was in section 2 of the report, which is where it's talking about the, if you like, the length of time we will allow for you to get that training and understand those modules. So what we're basically saying in section 2 is, for the pension regulator toolkit, which has always been a requirement, 6 months from appointment as a member. For the core modules within the online learning, 12 months from appointment. And then if any, there are also some, as if you've looked at it already, some current modules. If any of those are put online, we will notify you, and then there's 3 months to review that. I should say generally these modules are fairly short in nature, particularly the current issues. They are bite-sized. What we will do to complement this, as we do at present, so previously we used our governance consultant Aon for this kind of training. We've complemented it with very specialist training on particular areas like the valuation, like different asset classes. So in advance of you actually making any decisions relating to those kind of things. The final thing I will say is we have taken this through the local pension board for pre-scrutiny. There was a decent discussion there around it. It did go down well, and there were no changes made from what was drafted by officers. And I've also been asked by Michelle just to say if any of you, everyone should now have access to the new online learning. If you haven't, then please let either myself or Michelle know, and we'll provide that access to you immediately. But other than that, I'm happy to take any questions on the strategy.
Members, are there any questions? Yes, Andy.
Thank you, Chair. Mark, thanks very much. As you know, training is what I'm particularly interested in. A couple of points, really. It's a matter really of the detail of process. All of these requirements to take this training and to look at all the different briefings is clear. There's the date there. Is that likely to be published to indicate how far members have got? As you know, you would publish the number of meetings you attend. Would that be the sort of thing that you'd be considering to make sure that members are keeping up with their training profile?
We have gone down that path previously. I mean, certainly it would definitely be a conversation we would have with the chair if there was some, a member who was not progressing at all. I think the requirement of the core modules within 12 months is fairly easily achievable because of the length of the modules. And as I say, the idea is the training we would deliver in-house would give you the competence. We're obviously worried about the skills and knowledge of a committee from two aspects. One, that individuals have that individual competence within a reasonable time period, but then equally collectively that you have it, which is usually only an issue if there's a big churn after a election, for example. But I mean, it's up to you as a committee if you want us to be put into even into the public domain. That's entirely up to you as a committee. We would certainly have that discussion though with chair, and obviously just also check if a member isn't progressing, whether there's a reason for that.
Yeah, just on that issue, aren't these things going onto the councillor's profile on the website? There is a training history tab on that, or does the council have to ask for it to be put on, or should it not be there at all?
It will be on so there will be information there'll be information on the actual online platform for individuals, but then we can also get reports from progress as well. So that's one of the benefits of the new system. I'm not sure if you're referring to another area of the council whereby sorry, I can see Dawn screen.
We do have a training tab on each councillor profile, which is what Councillor Black's referring to. In the past, because pensions are sort of separate and has recorded them separately, we haven't added that on. I mean, that would be an option I could discuss with Michelle, but depending on what members thought.
I think that there's a sort of general view. I mean, if I come back to that slightly in a moment. One of the things, obviously, is that the training requirements actually come from CLR guidance around ensuring that we have the appropriate knowledge and skills to be able to carry out our duties. What I understand is there is nothing which requires us, there is nothing which can actually compel anyone to actually take this training. So therefore it would appear to me to be reasonably appropriate that we're actually seeing that visibly in some way, shape or form. So perhaps that is a discussion that we can have at some point in the future.
Yeah, you're correct, Chair. So there is a legal requirement for the LPB to have skills and knowledge, but that wasn't put in place in legislation for committee members, although the latest consultation around in the investment consultation is looking to put something in. So I think that is moving, and almost certainly there will be a point at which it will be a legal requirement, but absolutely we can do whatever you want in terms of that visibility.
Any other questions, members? Andy, back to you.
Forgive me, I have a couple more. Thank you for that. I know in Peterborough, of course, we don't show that sort of detail on the public site. It's a debate for us to have within Peterborough, I think, about whether we want to do that. You get bombarded with quite a few emails directly from organisations that want to invite councillors involved in pension funds across the country. And they come directly from those particular organisations. I'm just wondering whether there was a proposal for what's available out there to be reviewed by the organisation here, the pension fund, so that we know what's recommended and what's not. And then just a simple process about if you want to go on these external things, how you do that and administer that, particularly if there are costs involved that might impact upon the fund.
So the core competencies are based on the SIP for Skills and Knowledge framework. So it should be everything that's needed if complemented by the TPR. But we obviously do see other things which are of interest, and we have previously kind of flagged those to members if we thought they're appropriate. And then something we discussed before the meeting was obviously the conferences on the within the normal pension committee cycle. There's obviously the governance report, which sets out that range of knowledge and information as well, which I think can be very well targeted at times. Anything on that is relevant. I would say, there are ones which are covering a broader range of issues, like the PLSA conference, which I think is something which would be really useful for some members to attend. Others are more specialist. So I think, yeah, there's a lot out there. Certainly if we see something external, we would review and see whether that's relevant. And we've done that in sort of the cyberspace before, where we've attended external things not related to our consultants, but which we were aware.
Thank you. So I was just hoping I could get some sort of commitment that if something comes up in my inbox, which seems to be useful, then I send that to someone and you can tell me whether it's relevant, suitable and affordable.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you send it to either myself or Michelle, then we will review and give you sort of our appraisal, what we understand it is. It happens an awful lot in the investment space, I would say, because that's where the majority of the conferences and seminars are.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry to go on about it, but thank you.
No, I think it's quite an important point. I mean, there is a huge amount of information. If you get anything like the number of emails I get around this, it can be very difficult to understand what is best. But I would normally just speak to Michelle to then see, sort of what is appropriate and not. Yeah. Okay. I think it's important just to highlight again the point that Mark has actually made around the fact that it is appropriate that we all undertake the training. It would be good to ensure that everyone has undertaken the training, and I think policy calls for us to do so within 12 months, with the exception of new members where it's slightly tighter to get the basic stuff, isn't it? And that is the fundamentals here, but we are being asked to approve the Cambridgeshire Pension Fund training strategy on that basis. Are we happy to do that? Thank you very much, everyone. Right, item 6 is the Pension Fund Annual Report and Statement of Accounts, 2022-23. Can I ask Ben Barlow, Investments and Fund Accounting Manager, to introduce this report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is the first draft we're bringing of the 22-23 accounts. They're currently unaudited. So this is the stage where we really would appreciate any comments, rather than any typos, unclear sections, anything like that. If you don't want to say now, you're welcome to email me as well, because we want to try and get the detail right at this stage before we get to a final draft, of course. They've been done in line with the SIPFA guidelines and follow the same procedures and formats that we've done in previous years that have been met quite well. The draft accounts will also go to the local pension board and the audit committee for further assurance. The annual report section is the responsibility of the pension committee, and the statement of accounts section is the responsibility of the audit committee to sign off. But the audit committee do like to have the knowledge of assurance that it's been through the pension committee beforehand. Thankfully, the chair crosses over on both committees, which obviously helps that. You'll see there is still some bits missing, mainly in relation to areas that are provided by third parties, but the majority is included, in particular the numbers bit and the figures that we've got. That's the main section in the statement of accounts. I'm not proposing to do a page turner because it is obviously a huge document. But if we could look at page 105 of the pack, which is the fund account itself. And I'll just talk through some of the numbers there and explain some of the story that the accounts are telling us. Hopefully that will help. So the actual the value of the fund has decreased by just under 71 million. In reality, it's probably not as bad as we'd feared. If you're looking at the date of the invasion of Ukraine was the 26th of February, you're pretty much looking at a full set of accounts following that, with the account starting 1st of April. So yeah, 71 million drop, but probably we feared at the time that it would be much worse than that. So the accounts are largely as expected. So there's no major surprises when we look at the fund account. So contributions are up by 14 million. That's in line with all our numbers we're seeing from the actuary, changes to seeing expected contribution rates, and also relates to the employer number changes. Benefits are up 5 million. Again, there's inflation in there, so that's as expected, and it relates to the retirement numbers, so that works back as well. The transfers in, they're kind of demand led really, so that they're hard to estimate. But if you look at them in relation to the payments out, which is basically transfers out, but it's just called payments out, we are £7 million up on the transfers, more coming in than there was going out. So the main story is that we're still cash positive, and that is inclusive of management expenses. So we're still cash positive after we've paid our management expenses. Management expenses are slightly lower, but are largely unchanged. And that's really a reflection of it's been a year where, because of performance, managers haven't been able to pick up their performance fees, and because of obviously the reduction in the value of the fund, it's replayed through the fees they're getting. I have got Fiona here with me, who has done all the heavy lifting on the accounts. For any more technical questions that I can't answer, she's looking at me now, a bit confused, like I'm setting her up to fail. But with that, I'll open up to any questions and any comments.
Andy.
Thank you, Chair. It's a broad question, really. I remember when I started being on this committee, we had a £100 million drop in value, and then regained it within the year, and we've now got a 70 million drop. Is this sort of around about the 2% level of impact of rise or fall? Is this a predicted thing, or is this wholly because of these exceptional things that have been going on over the last few years?
Yeah, well, thankfully, later on in the agenda is the performance report for the year that Mercer will be doing. And hopefully that will help to explain why we've got these movements we're getting. But certainly there was an expectation. I remember sitting here last year looking at a very good return on the fund. And it was, like I say, just after that the invasion of Ukraine happened, and all the problems have followed with inflation. And then obviously the mini budget that has changed our funding level massively. So yeah, I think it's fair to say we were expecting returns to drop in relation to the previous year, but the whole story should feed back to what we're going to be told by Mercer's of how the fund managers have basically performed throughout the year, and how the different asset classes in particular have performed throughout the year. So yes, I would say it was expected, and actually we expected a bigger drop, I think, than we've actually seen.
Members, any other points? Obviously, this is an opportunity for us to raise anything, and as Ben has asked, if we've noticed anything which doesn't look quite right or doesn't read right, it would be really useful to get that fed back as soon as possible, so that they can feed that into the accounts. And obviously we're in, these are still effectively a draft position at the moment, so we do have that option. I can't see anyone else with any issues that they wish to raise at this stage. Michael.
Sorry, Chair, it's probably just worth noting that the external auditors have informed us that the audit won't take place for some time. I'm conscious we'll have the annual report coming before the end of the calendar year. It's unlikely that we will have the audit opinion by that date. So I just wanted to make members aware that there's still an ongoing delay in the audits taking place.
Yeah, Mark's completely correct. Yeah, there is obviously a delay on audits this year. One thing that we do have, which is helpful, is we have a separate ISA 260. So we will be able to give you a final auditor's report, but for actually the line in the sand, when that's signed, there will be a delay on that.
Have we been given a timetable of when they expect these things to actually happen at the current time? Or is it that?
Yeah, so Fiona, do you want to jump in? You're doing the audit at the moment, aren't you?
Yeah. I think the auditors are estimating for November to start. But I don't know when we would receive the ISA 260 report.
Okay, that's obviously significantly adrift from where they were. And I know that the audit market is in quite a challenging place everywhere, let's put it like that, and changing requirements within the audit market and a lack of attractiveness of the market does offer an explanation for it, if not a justification for it. I think that some of us who actually worked in audit many years ago were concerned about what was going on. There we are. Okay, so sorry, Andy.
Sorry, so Michael's comments have brought up a question I had around the issue of qualification in audits. We certainly see it in the council about the delays in being able to provide the audited service might be an issue, and whether you have any concerns about that, or whether having a qualification on the report is in any way likely.
No, I wouldn't expect any qualification in any way. Michael might jump in and tell me otherwise, but it's just a delay. It's just that, there'll be a delay in when we get that sign off to actually happen. But from a pension fund point of view, there's no risk there.
We wait to see whether there'll be a recommendation and actual carry out of moving the pension fund out of the authorities' accounts and being a standalone set themselves, which would help with this, because there's the reason for the delay is actually linked to the county council, and then in linked to that the districts in Cambridge's situation. We are expecting SIPFA, the FRC, the NAO and Treasury to be reviewing valuations over the summer, with some view that may help with the position on local authority accounts. But just to be really clear, the qualifications are relating to the local authority accounts. What you're seeing nationally is discussions going around the delay in audits. I am not aware of anything, and I last spoke to Mark a few weeks ago in relation to Cambridge's audits in relation to any qualifications. There are some national debates though about how local authorities treat the valuation of asset and liabilities, and the auditors' expectations around the carrying out of their work, and that will progress throughout the summer. But there's no qualifications issues either, as far as I'm concerned either.
Thank you for that, Michael. Members, anyone else, any comments? Okay, in which case we are being asked to note the draft annual report and statement of accounts of the pension fund for 2022-23 financial year. I trust we're happy to. Thank you. And if you could try and take a little bit of a read at least and feedback anything, that would be helpful. Thank you. Okay, item 7 is the committee agenda plan. Officers, do you have any comments or updates? No updates on that. Members, do you have any questions or comments on the agenda plan? No, I see nothing in the room. So we're being asked to note the committee agenda plan. Are we happy to do so? Thank you. So the next item is the exclusion of press and public. And the committee is asked to resolve that the press and public be excluded from the meeting on the grounds that the following two items contain exempt information under paragraph 3 of part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972 as amended, and it would not be in the public interest for this information to be disclosed. Information relating to financial or business affairs of any particular person, including the authority holding the information. Members, are we happy to do that? Thank you. As this is the final public item on the agenda, I would like to express my thanks to those members of the public and press who have taken the time to watch the meeting today via the Council's website. The broadcast will now end and the committee is due to meet next on Wednesday, the 4th of October. This public meeting is now closed.